Hi, and welcome to this session on Employee Performance Management. This session will focus on the PIP, Performance Improvement Plan, sometimes called the PMP or Performance Management Plan. Now, before I go forward, I'd like to talk a little about the word discipline. I don't typically use the word discipline as it relates to employee performance because it suggests looking backward at mistakes, and there's kind of a punitive tone to it. Whereas coaching and counseling looks forward to improvement and upward movement. So you'll hear me say coaching and counseling as opposed to discipline. Now, of course, in organizations, there's many types of employee performance management. Most notorious maybe is the performance appraisal, the annual review, if you will. Other types may be sessions for goal setting, or one-off meetings when there's an incident or outcome in employee performance that needs addressing. When these types of coaching and counseling are not effective, this is where the PIP comes into play. The PIP is often a dreaded process with supervisors because it feels uncomfortable, and it usually has an awkward message to it in saying that there's failure here. So this is very important as a supervisor to have a preparation ready, so even when things are going south, you have a script to maybe fall back on. There's three purposes of the PIP, or just three main objectives. And this is to develop a roadmap with the employee, working collaboratively, to bring the employee's performance back to satisfactory level. In this process, the second objective is to clarify the expectations of satisfactory performance. And then finally, to set a time frame to review the progress of the employee as you go forward. This meeting should be documented so that these points are very clear to all attending. This is an example of a form that I've developed that has three main areas. It includes the attendees at the top, the supervisor's name, employee's name, a middle section where the areas of concern are outlined, and then a bottom section where expectations and the go-forward plan is outlined, along with the follow-up date of the meeting. And then finally at the bottom, there's an acknowledgement where all attendees sign that this meeting has been discussed, and there's also an acknowledgement by the employee that consequences such as further counseling and coaching could occur, and even up to the termination of employment. And this is just a way of giving fair notice to the employee that these areas are grave and need immediate attention. Now, one of the things you want to consider is the timing of this meeting. If your issue with the employee is performance of time management, you certainly don't want to time this at, say, in an accounting cycle when all things are due, and then the time off of the employee's job is going to cause more stress. And similarly, you wouldn't do this right before the employee is going on a long vacation break, a holiday weekend, or some other thing that could be distracting. So you want to, in other words, make this in the normal course of flow of the work, so you're not adding to the already stressful situation of sitting down with the employee. During the meeting, of course, you want to work collaboratively with the employee. You want them to acknowledge the concern and why it's important, and even give feedback as to why they believe it's occurring. This, of course, will engender buy-in by the employee and turn it into more of a joint resolution for these situations. And then secondly, you want to be supportive. This doesn't mean that you sit and criticize, and this is easy to do, turn it into a critique of everything that's going wrong with the employee. Obviously, if you're spending this time with the employee, you believe in them, and you know that they can achieve these outcomes. So you need to convey that instead of, a wandering narrative, if you will, of everything that's been wrong. This will only reinforce uncertainty if that's the problem in the employee's behavior. And then, of course, you want to adjourn only when the expectations are clear. So you don't want to leave the meeting feeling like, I don't know if they got it or not. And sometimes you hear supervisors saying that, like, I'm not sure if he's following that or not. And that isn't the way to leave it. I think you want to hear the employee say, I understand, and I will make every effort to bring these areas up for satisfaction. Now, speaking of mistakes that are made in these meetings by supervisors, again, this is a stressful situation not only for the employee but for the supervisor, because you're delivering an unpleasant message and then waiving some consequences in front of them in the light of all these things. So it's very, very easy for supervisors to maybe fumble in their own presentation and begin again wandering down the lane of past mistakes that may be not even relevant to the themes that are being presented. And then secondly, they are setting a deadline or timeline and then not sticking with it. So the meeting adjourns and the employee goes forward with more work, and a week goes by, 2 weeks, nothing is followed up. Another thing supervisors feel is that they're bound by their own timeline. So if they say, we'll meet on the 25th, they feel like they have to meet on the 25th. And instead, they should be reviewing the progress of the employee in the interim from the end of the meeting to the 25th or right before the 25th. Is that a good time to review again? Or maybe some more time is needed. Or you do meet and it's just a touching base and giving some feedback on some of the incidents that have happened since the meeting. So, of course, the way to keep this from happening is to be sure that you are, when you are documenting and getting ready for the PIP, that areas of concern are grouped into clusters so there isn't a big long essay or narrative of common or current mistakes. You are focusing on the way forward and not sounding punitive or bossy. And then finally you're establishing dates and making sure that you are committed to staying on those timelines. Sometimes when I look at a PIP process, I think of people being taught to learn a bicycle ride. I can remember when I was learning to ride a bicycle, it's not just get on and get going. It's usually there is some wobbles, if you will, there's crashes, there's a lot of questions. And so a supervisor should be ready to answer all those initial questions of fixing the behavior and then being ready to so-called hover nearby when there's some bobbles or weaving. And this then would call the employee to need some more assistance, and that's where the supervisor should be ready to tweak handlebars, give some more feedback, give encouragement, of course. That's how we learn, that's how we're focused on the road ahead. And once the bicycle, so-called, is nice and smooth cruising, the supervisor can then back away. And that's, again, another one of those things that sometimes the bike is left wobbling down the road and the supervisor only swoops back in when it's so annoying they have to do something. And by then, they are probably in an anger mode where they want to just give up on the employee. And really the purpose, again, of an improvement plan is to bring the employee back to satisfactory level. There's a lot of reasons that employees can fail on performance, and even when you bring in the most stellar recruited person and they seem like they've got the job, and of course life comes along and things can get in the way of their performance. So the key of being a good leader or supervisor is to have that flexibility of understanding everybody learns a little different, everybody progresses a little different, and sometimes people can have these wobbles in life that are nothing to do with their ability to do the job. It's just that life has come along and interfered with their performance. So, as always, I'd like to know your opinions of this and give me some feedback on what you think, and good luck with your supervising abilities. Thank you.